So this past weekend was the pre-release weekend for Lost Caverns of Ixalan. It was a lot of fun. I played in 2 pre-releases at 2 different game stores. So what I wanted to do was make a video going over some of the cards that I played, talk about my thoughts on some of these specific cards, do kind of a little bit of a deck tech, and then also we're going to open up these prize packs at the end. So this was the first deck that I played at my LGS. I believe there were around 10 to 12 people at the event, so it was a 3-round event, and I was fortunate enough to be able to go 3-0, and that was where I got these prize packs from. So this deck was green-black. It felt very good, but what I'm actually going to do is go into more detail about the second deck, because there are several cards in here which I played in both decks, and I think it'll be more interesting to talk about the second deck more, actually. So this is the second deck that I played at the second pre-release event. This event is one that I played at MTG North. They're a game store in Goderich, Ontario, and they actually have their own YouTube channel as well. It's a pretty great channel. I watch their videos regularly, and I would recommend checking them out. I'll put a link to them in the video description below. But I went to visit there for the weekend, and I played in their pre-release as well. There were more people at this one. I believe there were 21, and there were 4 rounds, but I actually played kind of a little bonus round after. I was fortunate enough to go undefeated with this deck as well. So far the Lost Caverns of Ixalan events are treating me pretty well, I guess. And for winning that event, I did get some prizing as well, but I ended up opening at the store, but I saved these packs from the previous one. We'll open up these in the video. Let's go over this deck though. So you can see I played red-black this time. I feel like I say this with every set now, but there seems to be a lot of really good black removal in this set. So seeing as I played black in both of the decks, and both of them went undefeated, I feel like black is probably pretty good in this limited format. For both decks, I kind of played black on the back of getting a bunch of good removal spells here. Let's talk about some of these creatures though first. So I had this guy, Zoyoa Lava Tongue. This one is very cool. There's a lot of value packed into this 2-drop, so it costs a black and red. It's a 2/2 Goblin Warlock. It has Death Touch, and it says at the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, each opponent may discard a card or sack a permanent. This does 3 damage to each opponent who didn't. So basically, being just a 2/2 Death Touch for 2 is pretty good and limited already. But then this Descend thing is very easy to trigger Descend. You can build around it with a lot of the cards that are in this set. And it kind of might seem like a small effect here, but this can add up pretty fast, and this is something that does eventually need to be answered, so this 2-drop seems quite good. This Deathcap Marionette was one that I played in both decks. I had 2 copies of it in my previous deck, just one in this, but I like this as well. This is a 2-mana Death Touching thing as well. This only has 1 power, but when it enters the battlefield, you can mill 2 cards. That's quite good because this is one way to turn on Descend. Also, you can fill up your graveyard with permanents to trigger the things that need you to have 4 or 8 cards in your graveyard to have Descend turned on. There's also some other cards here like this Buried Treasure, which are good to just mill anyway because you can use them out of the graveyard. I had 1 Compass Gnome. This was basically filler. It's good for mana fixing. It's not amazing, but you can put a land on top of your deck if you want, and it has 2 power for 2 mana, so it's okay stats and limited. A couple of other decent ones though. There was this Enterprising Scallywag. I do like this card quite a bit in limited actually. It's a 2-mana 2/2. Very simple effect though. At the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, you make a treasure token. And as I said before, it's pretty easy to be able to turn on Descend fairly reliably. So, this is a 2-mana 2/2 that can repeatedly ramp you. So this did quite a bit of work actually. Then there's this other one. These actually work very well together. Volatile Wanderglyph. Once again, a 2-mana 2/2. This one, though, it says, when it becomes tapped, you can discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So this one's pretty good because, it's a bear, but it can also give you repeated card filtering. But this can turn on Descend as well, because you can just discard a permanent, maybe a land or something, and then that will trigger this guy. So these work quite well together. Didn't have very many 3-drop creatures in this deck, just the 2. They were okay. Actually, the Hotfoot Gnome was quite good. I do like this one. It's a 3/1 for 3 with haste, and you can tap it to give another creature haste until end of turn. I did use the tap ability quite a few times, so I do like this guy. And then there's also this Plundering Pirate. It's a 3-mana 3/2. It makes a treasure when it comes into play, so once again, pretty good. 3/2 for 3 is fine stats, but then it ramps you. Had a couple of good 4-drops here, though. Well, 3 actually. So The first one, this is the new version of Bloodbraid Elf, basically Geological Appraiser, 4 mana, 3/2, that discovers 3 when it enters the battlefield. One thing that's cool with this, though, is that this is an enter the battlefield trigger, so it works pretty well with the Roaming Throne here, which this is a 4 mana, 4/4, Ward 2 golem. When it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type. It's the chosen type in addition to its other types. If a triggered ability of another creature of the chosen type triggers, it triggers an additional time. So what I did a few times was choose human with this, and then with my Geological Appraiser, I would discover 3 twice when it comes into play, and that's a ton of value in limited, so that works quite well. The Roaming Throne, obviously, is going to be good as a 4 mana, 4/4 Ward 2 as well. Also had this guy, which you saw me spoil a little bit. This is the, the red god from the cycle. I basically played this as just a 4/4 trample for 4, which is good and limited. I don't think that I have any way to trigger it to flip back over if it flips into a land in this deck. And there's barely any ways also to trigger this ability, but it's still just good as a 4 mana 4/4 trample, and it did its job. Just one 5-drop here, Primordial Gnawer. This card is fine. Like it's decent filler. It's not something I would pick highly. It's a 5/2 for 5, so those are not good stats. But when it dies, you discover 3, so it can do some work. It's gonna die to most things in combat, but this card was fine. Then I had 2 copies of this one right here, Rampaging Spiketail. So this is a cycle in the set. There's one for each color where you can cycle it for the land that fits with its color. I like this one quite a bit though, because the creature is actually quite nice. A 5/6 for 6, but when it comes into play, another creature you control gets +2/+0 and indestructible till end of turn. It can actually target itself too, but usually I would target something else. But I have no problem playing multiple copies of cards like this in the deck where, it's high on the mana curve, but since it has the cycling ability, you can easily play multiple copies and they can just fix your mana. So I did like this one quite a lot, and I would probably play multiple copies in the future again. So those are all the creatures. A little bit on the low end for creatures. I had 10 non-creature spells here. A lot of them were removal though, so I had Dead Weight. I had this in both decks as well. This is a reprint. It's been reprinted a few times. This is great black removal, especially in limited. Tithing Blade. This was in both decks as well. This one is very good. It's a 2 mana artifact. When it comes into play, each opponent sacks a creature. So 2 mana sacrifice, that's a pretty standard cost, but it also has the craft ability, so you can pay 5 and craft with just 1 creature. It's very easy. And then it flips it over into this enchantment, which is actually not bad. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 1 and you gain 1. So, in grindy games, you can just win a game with this, or, a lot of the time, by the time you get to the point where you want to flip this over, your opponent might only be at like 5 or less life. So this can be a way to close the game out. I do like this one quite a bit. An Idol of the Deep King. It's kind of a similar card. It's like kind of removal on an artifact that you can craft later. This one though costs 3. It has flash. When it enters the battlefield, it does 2 damage to anything. You can craft it with an artifact and just pay 3, so it's very easy to craft. However, on the backside, it's just like a mediocre equipment. Creature gets +2/+0. It's fine. I don't believe I ever flipped it over, but this actually did quite a bit of work just being as an overcosted shock, essentially, but I would play this again for sure. Had to Join the Dead. It's pretty standard removal, a 3 mana instant. Creature gets -5/-5, or you can give it potentially -10, -10. Malicious Eclipse. Another variation on cards that we've seen before. All creatures get -2/-2 till end of turn. This one can exile opponent's creatures if they die, though. And then I had this big one up here, Ray of Ruin. Not the greatest removal. It's a 5 mana sorcery speed exile, but it does what you need it to, and you get the little scry one on top of that there. But this is 6 pieces of removal right here. I had even more in the other deck actually, but as you can see, there's a lot of black removal. Had this card here, Visage of Dread. It was pretty decent. 2 mana. When it enters the battlefield, you can look at opponent's hand, and then you can make them discard a creature or artifact. So that's, that cost is pretty fine at 2 mana there. It's pretty standard. But then you can craft with 2 creatures. You pay 6 mana, and this creature that it turns into is actually pretty good. It's a 5/4 menace. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you can mill 2. So I do like this card quite a bit, actually, because being able to just look at their hand, take something out of it, and then late game flip it over into this 5/4, that's pretty good. I would play this again for sure. Got a diamond pickaxe. This one's okay. Like, I see some people are hyped about this card. I think it's fine. I would play it again in limited, but I probably wouldn't pick it highly. So it's just 1 mana artifact. It has indestructible. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, and has whenever the creature attacks, you make a treasure. So this is, repeatable ramp on something that just costs 1. The equip cost is 2, and it gives it +1/+1. So it's not bad. It's fine. It's just I don't entirely see the hype around it, but we'll see. 2 copies of this card. This is one that I do like a lot, though. Buried Treasure. I played this in both decks, once again. This is one where I started off playing just 1 copy of this, I believe, but then I added the second copy because I liked this card so much. So it's just a common. It costs 2 mana. It's a treasure, basically. You can tap it and sack it to add 1 mana of any color, so it's kind of like a rampant growth, but you can only use it once. However, though, you can pay 5 and exile it from your graveyard to discover 5. And that's actually very good, I think, because actually what a lot of the time I would do is if I could say scry and I could see this on top, I would just leave it on top, because what I would do is just draw this, play it, sacrifice it to get, the extra 1 mana I might need to get to 5, and then just immediately discover 5. I was never really unhappy to see this card, because Discover 5 is pretty big. You can get some pretty good stuff with that, and, it ramps you early on. I think this card is very good for a common. I also had 3 non-basic lands here. The rest of the cards were just basic swamps and mountains, but there's 3 non-basic lands. I had a Captivating Cave. I like this card. It adds a colorless. It comes into play untapped, though. You can pay 1 and tap it to add 1 mana of any color, but then you can pay 5, tap sack this, or 4, tap sack this, so 5 total. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature. That's pretty good, I think. I like this one. I would probably play a 1 of in pretty much any limited deck, I think. Promising Vein is fine. It's very similar to the 1 land out of the Lord of the Rings set. But this, actually, I like this because this is a very easy way to turn on Descend. It worked well with this guy here and the other 2-drop that gets me a treasure. So I like this for that reason. And it's fine fixing. Once again, it comes into play untapped. Only taps for a colorless, but then you can sacrifice it, pay 1, and get a basic land. Then I was able to get this, the black-red creature land from the cycle, the Restless Fence. This card was good. All of these are good this full cycle. And yeah, this one did work. It got in damage. It was there as a blocker. It helped me filter my hand. It was, creature lands are good. One of the lands you did not see in this deck, which I'm a pretty big fan of actually, was this cycle. I had 2 copies of this in my other deck. I just didn't open any in this pool. But I like this cycle quite a bit in limited, actually. It's the monocolor cycle. There's 1 for each color. Comes into play tapped, and you can add it for its according color. All of them say you can pay 4 and whatever color, and then tap and sacrifice it, so 6 mana total, and you discover 4. Usually with effects like this, where it's, comes into play tapped, has a expensive cost, I'm not really a big fan of those, but these ones I do like quite a bit, because it's not just drawing a card, or, putting a counter on something or something like that. It's getting to discover 4, so you could potentially just cast a 4-drop for sacrificing this land. I feel like the cost of having this come into play tapped early on is worth that. And in my first deck, I started off with 1 of these, and I had 2 in my pool, so later on I added the second one just because I liked this card so much. I think this cycle is pretty good for limited. So that was the second deck I played. As I said with this one, I was able to go 5-0. So the tournament was 4 rounds, and at the end of the 4th round, there were 2 people that were undefeated, me and 1 other person. And we could have just let it go to tiebreakers to see who would get the first place prize, because first and second were not the same prize. But rather than do that, we decided to play it out. So we played a 5th bonus round, basically, to decide which one of us would actually be first, and I was able to win that game. So I was able to go 5-0 with this deck, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. I opened the prizes there, as I said, so don't have those to open today, but what we're going to do right now is go back to those other packs from the first event. So we'll open up these 5 prize packs here. Maybe we'll get a Jurassic World card. I have yet to find one of these. Could be something cool. We could even get a Mana Crypt. There's a very low chance. It's possible, but I don't expect to see a Mana Crypt in here. We got a Vampire though, so which is the front with these packs? Okay, so this is the front. Oh, so the cool stuff is up front. I see a Tarian Soul Cleaver. Alright, that card is fine. I think it's a pretty decent equipment. I would probably play that in Limited. We have this thing, though. We have the Blue God from the cycle. That's pretty cool. The alternate art one there. Anything else? Inverted Iceberg. Chupacabra. The new Ravenous Chupacabra, basically. And some cool stuff. Alright, so that was a good pack. There's a foil version of that land I like. So we got one Mythic, one Rare. We'll put the rest of the stuff here. It's a good start. Let's see what we can get in our second pack. It goes this way. We got a map. Marauding Brine Fang. There's something borderless there. Whale of the Forgotten. I think that card's pretty good, I think. So it has to send 8. You can choose one. If you have the 8 permanents, you can do both, though. You can bounce something. Actually, you can do all 3 of these. You can bounce something, make something, opponent discard a card. Look at the top 3 of your library, put 1 into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. So if you do have to send 8, that's a lot of value for 2 mana. I think this one has some potential. What's this? Bringer of the Last Gift. That's cool. That's like, what, the Living Death or Living End or whatever on a creature. It's pretty cool art. And then we have this thing, so we got a couple of rares there. Oh, here it is again. Contested Game Ball. Yeah, that felt like a pretty decent pack as well. No Mythic, but we got 2 rares. We have a treasure token. Battle Glyph. A Jade Light Spelunker. This card is very good. I think this is the Buy a Box promo, but this is basically Jade Light Ranger. It's not exactly Jade Light Ranger, but Jade Light was very good back in Standard, when it was in Standard, and this is potentially better than that. Sometimes not as good, but it's very similar. We have this guy again. Oh, there's his Justice. Spyglass Siren. That's a great 1-drop. And a cool Swamp. I do like these lands. So just 1 rare in that pack. Market Gnome. The Ever-Flowing Well. Twists and Turns. Deep Cavern Bat. That's a good uncommon once again. And we have a cool Forest. So 1 pack left. Can we get anything else cool? Wouldn't mind seeing one of the land cycle, the rare land cycle. Try and slow roll this one. Here's just an ad card. Okay, what is this? A rare Fabrication Foundry. Alright. This has potential. This is an untapped 2-mana mana rock. There's some, drawbacks to it, but has potential. We have an uncommon, this guy. And that's about it, okay. We have a Triumphant Chomp. Nice, and a cool Swamp. Alright. So that's not bad. We got the 1 Mythic, some playable stuff here. I think this card looks sweet. I like a lot of the art for the borderless arts in this set. So I do have some product on the way to me for this set. I'll be doing a set booster box as well as a collector booster box. So look out for those videos if you're interested in seeing me open some more Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Hopefully the collector booster box will arrive soon. There was some kind of delay for those, but it's on the way, so if you're interested to see those, keep an eye out for it. But otherwise though, if you're still watching, thanks for watching. It'd be cool if you can like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. I'd encourage everyone to come join my Discord server. You can find a link to that in the video description below. And also, if you'd like to purchase any Magic cards, you can get those by going to facetofacegames.com. They're the largest Magic store in Canada, and they're also a sponsor of the channel. And you can use code 8thPlaceDave at the checkout to save 5% on your order. And also, I'd just like to take a moment to thank all the patrons that support me on Patreon. But otherwise though, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.